Good morning and greetings from Kotak Securities. We are delighted to welcome you to the webinar on auto and auto ancillary sectors. And I'll take a few moments to introduce Arun Agarwal, Deputy Vice President, Fundamental Research, Kotak Securities. Arun joined the industry in 2005. He has an overall experience of 15 years in research. He has been with Kotak from 10 years and tracks auto and ancillary segment. We welcome you, Arun.
Thank you. We welcome you all in today's webinar for the auto and the ancillary segment. In today's presentation, we will broadly cover the different segments of the automotive sector. We'll just touch upon the growths and the volumes and the market share in the players out there, and also briefly touch upon the components sector in India. And towards the end of the presentation, we will talk about the outlook, our outlook basically on the automotive sector, and then we'll have the question and answer session post that. So just give me a couple of moments. I'll just start with the presentation. So India's auto industry is quite significant to the Indian economy in terms of its contribution to the GDP, the employment generation that it does. There's a lot of exports that also happens in the auto sector. So it's quite impactful on the forex earnings as well, and also on the foreign direct investment side. So it's a very critical industry for our economy, which has seen a decent growth and has a good growth opportunities going ahead as well. So today what we'll do is we'll start firstly with the two-wheeler segment, and then proceed with other segments. So the India's auto industry is the Indian auto industry can broadly be divided into the two-wheeler segment, the three-wheeler segment, the passenger vehicle segment, the commercial vehicle segment, which includes both the light commercial vehicles as well as the medium and heavy commercial vehicles, and the tractors. If you look at in terms of the overall volumes for the auto industry, two-wheeler is the largest segment in the domestic industry, accounting for almost 80% of the total automobile production in the country. In the past 10 years data, if you have a look at the domestic two-wheeler sales have grown at a compounded rate of around 6%. Now, this relatively is a low rate as compared to the previous decade, but one of the reasons for the low CAGR of 6% between FY10 to FY20 is that the decade actually started on a pretty high note where we saw very high growth initially and ended on a low. If you look at the FY20 numbers, we can see in the chart as well, the industry actually saw a decline of 18% in terms of volumes in FY20. So that's one part reason why the overall CAGR growth for the two-wheeler industry also looks slightly lower. Moving on to the next slide, the two-wheeler industry or the segment can be divided broadly into three sub-segments. One is the scooters, the motorcycles, and moped. Now, the reason for this differentiation and showing this chart is basically because different players are actually strong in different sub-segments, and the growth that we have seen in the past 10 years have been different in motorcycles and scooters. So depending which particular segment is growing, it really impacts the particular the players who are present and got higher market share in those segments. So historically, if you look at the Indian two-wheeler demand, was dominated by a geared scooter segment. In the 90s, the industry witnessed a structural shift in demand towards the motorcycle segment. However, in the past 10 years, the industry has again witnessed a structural shift in favor of the ungeared scooters. As a result, the share of scooters, if you look in the chart, in the domestic two-wheeler segment increased from less than 16%, that's the orange part there, which has increased from less than 16% in FY10 to 31% in FY16, so almost doubled in 6 years, and has been in the range of 31 to 33% in the past 5 years. So there has been, after a steep increase from FY10 to FY16, we are seeing a bit of consolidation happening for the scooter share. Uh, in terms of players, while there are multiple players there in the two-wheeler segment, but the key players in the segment are Hero MotoCorp, Honda Motorcycle and Scooters India, Bajaj Auto, and TVS Motors. Royal Enfield is a relatively smaller player in terms of volumes. And then there are Yamaha, there is Suzuki, and other players present, which accounts for a very low market share. So overall, Hero MotoCorp, HMSI, Bajaj Auto, and TVS Motors accounts for 89% of the domestic volumes. Balance 11% is mainly distributed, as I talked about, between Royal Enfield, Yamaha, and Suzuki, each having around 3 to 4% market share. In the past decade, given strong growth in scooters, HMSI actually gained market share. We can see that from the chart, the HMSI's market share has actually seen a significant increase from FY10 to FY15. That was because HMSI is a very strong player in the scooter segment and they have dominant market share. And the scooter segment actually did very well during that period. And as a result, HMSI gained market share between FY10 to FY15. However, as I pointed out in the last slide as well, the scooter share is now consolidated. So we have seen the market share for HMSI and HMSI basically being or seeing a marginal increase in the last 5 years. But the impact of this has been on Hero MotoCorp, which has seen a decline in their market share because the presence in the scooter segments is relatively weak. And however, the good point for Hero MotoCorp is at least in the past 4 to 5 years, they have been able to maintain their market share in the motorcycle segment. Bajaj Auto, on the other hand, has lost market share due to their absence in the scooter segment. However, they just recently entered into electric scooters, and also the weak presence they had in the deluxe motorcycle segment. For TVS Motors, the market share has broadly ranged between 12 to 15% during the past 10 years. Royal Enfield has shown a very strong growth in their volume, so they have seen some increase in their market shares. We'll now move on to the three-wheeler industry. Yeah, on the three-wheeler industry, the three-wheeler industry in India includes passenger carrier and goods carrier. So more than 80% of the sales volume in the domestic three-wheeler industry comes from the passenger carrier segment, and 18% comes from the goods carrier segment. So it's more of a passenger carrier volumes that derives the growth for the three-wheeler industry. In FY20, three-wheeler industry volume stood at 6.4 lakh units. Players selling three-wheelers in India includes Bajaj Auto, Piaggio, Mahindra and Mahindra, Atul Auto, TVS Motors, and Scooters India. In this particular segment, Bajaj Auto is the clear market leader with 57% market share, which is followed by Piaggio with around 24% market share. The domestic three-wheeler industry declined by around 9% in FY20. In fact, the entire auto industry had seen a decline in FY20, and we did see the three-wheeler industry also declining by around 9% last year. We move on to the passenger vehicle industry now. If you look at the last 9 years data on the passenger vehicle industry, the domestic passenger vehicle industry has grown in single digit. 10-year domestic passenger vehicle volume CAGR is mere 4%, which is quite low. In the past 9 years, the industry actually did not witness double-digit volume growth in a single year. In FY20, in fact, the industry volumes, as we can see in the chart, has declined by 20% year on year, and has been in the past 5 years has been the only year of decline. And was quite steep at around 20%. Growth, if you look over the past few years in the passenger vehicle industry, has largely come from the utility vehicle, that's a UV segment, specifically the compact SUV segment. More and more players are bringing in new products in the compact SUV segment. We have seen the competition has already heated up, and we are expecting that the competition will further heat up in this particular segment as more and more players enter into this growing segment. In terms of market share now, despite low volume growth, as we pointed on in the last slide for this industry, Maruti Suzuki has reported relatively higher volume growth in the past decade, and that was because of increase in market share. When we look at the chart, we can clearly see Maruti's market share have seen a significant increase from FY12. If you look at to FY20, which was almost a 50% market share. The reason for Maruti increasing market share in the last few years, 7, 8 years, has been successful new launches. Most of the products that Maruti have launched has seen good success in the market. Presence in rural area, the share of vehicles sold in rural area has seen some increase for Maruti over the past few years now, and the company has got good distribution network across India, so that too is helping Maruti out from the competition. And also another important fact that helped the company grow is the shift in demand from diesel to petrol engine. On the other hand, if you look at for other players, Hyundai has gained some market share, but if you look at Mahindra has lost market share, as well as Tata Motors actually saw significant market share erosion between FY10 to FY15 due to a lack of new products. Though Tata Motors over the past few years is now trying or attempting to gain market share, but has not gained much success so far. Overall, the top four players accounted for around 80% of the overall share in the domestic passenger vehicle segment. We'll just dwell a little bit more on the petrol versus diesel thing, because that was one of the prime reason, or one of the reasons I would say that helped Maruti gaining a market share. And we are still seeing even when the industry moved away from BS4 to BS6, a lot of companies actually said that they'll not be making diesel engines for smaller vehicles. There have been a lot of concerns on diesel engines. One, definitely for the companies, was that there was a significant cost for moving from BS4 to BS6 for small diesel engines. The other being that the government is also focusing on lowering pollution and moving towards green technologies. So the share of or the demand for diesel vehicles have seen a significant decline now over the years, starting with FY13. So basically, the government focus on reducing emissions. Further, another reason for lower diesel demand is reduction in gap between the petrol and diesel prices, which we have seen falling significantly. So from if you look at FY13, the overall share of diesel run vehicles was around 58%. Which is now down to around 29% in FY20. So how does this impact the OEMs? Because certain manufacturers are strong with certain type of engines. Say for example, Maruti was always strong on the petrol side, so it helps players like Maruti. But players who are not having a very strong in the petrol engine side, so it hurts them a little bit. Another thing is with the as I told you, deciding not to launch smaller diesel engines with BS6, that's a new emission norms which came into effect from 1st April 2020. The share of diesel run vehicles is expected to decline further in FY21. So the chart that we see on the slide now pertains to the quarterly average discount per vehicle of Maruti Suzuki for the past 10 odd years. Now, given that Maruti Suzuki is the leader with almost 50% market share now, this chart gives us a fair idea about how the discounts are moving in the domestic passenger vehicle industry. In this chart, we observe that the average discounts have increased over the years for Maruti. So if you look at the bars from in FY11, and as we move towards the right, towards FY19-20, we see that the average discounts have been moving up. So in FY19, the industry volumes grew by a mere 3%, and in FY20, the industry volume declined by 18%. So the average discounts tend to increase during a weak period, and hence we see a slightly higher discount levels in FY19 and FY20. However, as demand picks up going forward over the course of next 2 to 3 years, the discounts ideally should come down and should be beneficial for the company's profitability. Now we move on to the commercial vehicle segment. The commercial vehicle segment is a very cyclical industry. The chart of commercial vehicle industry volumes clearly shows that there are sharp year-on-year changes in growth. In the past 10 years, the data is there on the slide. The commercial vehicle industry has witnessed 20% year-on-year increase in 2 different years. So that's a significant increase when you talk about 20% increase in volumes. So if you look at FY11 and we look at FY18, these were the 2 years where the industry has shown more, sort of 20% plus growth. Now, similarly, on the other hand, the industry has also witnessed 20% plus year-on-year decline in volumes on 2 occasions in the past 10 years, which is in FY14 and FY20. In fact, in FY20, we see a significant decline, much higher than FY14. Now, the industry, if you look at, we can divide it between the light commercial vehicles and the medium and heavy commercial vehicles. The commercial vehicles, which are up to 7.5 ton, is described as light commercial vehicles, and any commercial vehicle in excess of 7.5 ton is classified as medium and heavy commercial vehicles. Now, the share of light commercial vehicle in the commercial vehicle volume mix has ranged between 53 to 68% in the past 10 years. We do observe a correlation between light and the medium heavy commercial vehicle segment. If you look at the past 10-year data, in 8 years out of that, both the light commercial vehicles and the medium medium and heavy commercial vehicle have moved in the same direction. So either both of them were positive or both of them were negative. So we do see some correlation between the light and the medium heavy commercial vehicles segment. On this particular slide, we will focus a bit more on the medium and heavy commercial segment. Now, the transportation of goods generally follow a hub and spoke model, wherein goods arrive at a certain key hubs through medium and heavy trucks and are transported to surrounding areas in light commercial vehicles. So medium and heavy commercial vehicle industry fortunes depends on the overall economic development that's happening in the country. Apart from the general economic indicators, factors such as road infrastructure, transport economics, freight demand, and credit availability also play a decisive role in determining the growth prospects for the medium and heavy commercial vehicle segment. Now, this particular segment in recent years, if you look at GST implementation and revision in axle norms had some impact on the MHCV segment. The MHCV segment in India is dominated by Tata Motors and Ashok Leyland, together accounting for around 80% of the overall market share. Eicher Motors joint venture with Volvo has around 13% market share. So these three players together account more than 90% of the overall medium and heavy commercial vehicle industry. Over the past many years, Tata Motors has been a very dominant player in the industry. However, they did lose some market share to Ashok Leyland and Volvo Eicher between FY8 to FY16. So the domestic MHCV industry actually faced a very difficult and challenging situation last year, where we can see the volumes declining by 43%, that's in FY20, and that is even higher than the 33% volume decline that we had witnessed in FY9. So in the past 10 years, the MHCV industry has witnessed the sharpest decline if you look at it in FY20. And though we'll cover the outlook at a later stage, but FY21 also looks to be a challenging year for the commercial vehicle segment. Coming now onto the tractor industry. Agriculture, as we all know, is the backbone of the rural economy, and farm mechanization is a pretty integral part of it. Positive development in the rural economy plays a major role in the growth prospects of the tractor industry. Over the years, India's rural economy has undergone significant structural changes. Focus on development of rural economy has gained major prominence, which bodes well for the tractor industry, and government is also investing heavily on rural development related schemes. Now, if you look at the chart on this slide, this shows the data of tractor volumes and the growth in the domestic market for the past 17 years, and offers a glimpse of the cyclical nature of the tractor industry. In the past 17 years, the industry has witnessed decline in 5 years, the latest being FY20, where the volume was down by around 10%. The data for the past 17 years, if you look at, shows 3 different tractor cycles. if we just have a close look at it, is of around 4 to 5 years. So that represents a 3 to 4 years of growth and followed by 1 to 2 years of degrowth. Now, the length of the cycle, the peak growth and the peak decline are determined by multiple factors that includes monsoons, crop prices, credit availability, labor availability, amongst others. In the last cycle, if you look at the tractor industry, had a strong positive growth for 3 years. That was between FY17 to FY19. However, that followed by a decline of 10% in FY20. Though FY20 has shown thrown up of 21 has shown a positive surprise on the tractor front. Talking on the market shares and the key players there in this particular segment. So the key players in the Indian tractor industry includes Mahindra and Mahindra, TAFE, which is Tractors and Farm Equipment Limited. We have Escorts, Sonalika, John Deere, New Holland. M&M is a clear market leader, we can see from the chart, and in the past 10 years, M&M has clearly maintained a market share above 40%. Now, market share, if you look, unlike we would have seen the other segments as well, but the market share for most players, if you look at it, has broadly been stable. There has been a little change here and there, but it's not very, very significant. So it's broadly ranged between 300 to 400 bits sort of swing, except for TAFE, which has seen a slightly higher swing in their market share. They've actually seen a loss in market share. We now move on to the exports part of the automotive segment. Now, as per SIAM, which is the industry body, India exported around 4.8 crore vehicles in FY20, of which two-wheelers accounted for 74% of the exported vehicles. On the left hand side, we can see where the two-wheelers have actually seen is the highest part of that overall exports. If you look on the second chart on the slide, which is on the right hand side, this shows how important exports are to different segments. When we compare with different total sales of different segments, we find that exports as a percentage of that particular segment varies. So in case of, say, for example, two-wheeler, 17% of their overall domestic overall sales are exports and 83% is domestic. But for example, if you look at the three-wheeler segment, there the exports is almost around 44% and 56% is domestic. So different segments have got different exposures to exports, with three-wheeler having the highest exposure, and commercial vehicles have a very, very low, less than 10% of their overall sales happen in exports, with majority sales happening in the domestic market. And if you look at the past few years data as well, the two-wheelers exports have witnessed a healthy traction. Here, Bajaj Auto accounts for almost around 53% exports last year, and TVS accounted for 19% of the two-wheeler exports. In three-wheeler again, Bajaj Auto and TVS Motors together account for 90% of the three-wheeler exports from India. In the passenger vehicle segment, in FY20, Hyundai was the largest exporter, and other key exporters includes Ford, Maruti, Nissan, and VW, Volkswagen. Now we just move towards the auto component sector. We'll just very broadly cover on the auto component sector, the size of the auto component sector. Now this slide basically highlights the significance of the auto component sector in India. The figures and data in this slide has been taken by Automotive Component Manufacturers Association, and these all pertain to FY19 data. Overall, a turnover of the Indian component industry in FY19 was close to 4 lakh crore. Exports by the auto component industry was a little over 1 lakh crore, and domestic aftermarket was 67,500 crore. The industry accounted for almost around 4% exports from India, and it gives employment to more than or around 50 lakh people. So that's a pretty significant or an important industry in our economy. The turnover, if you look at the auto component industry, has almost doubled between FY14 to FY19, from 2,11,000 crore in FY14 to nearly 4 lakh crore in FY19. Growth in turnover is on account of multiple factors, which includes growth in vehicle production, growth in exports and substitution as well. If we include auto component imports to the domestic component production turnover, now two-thirds of the sales happen to OEMs on the numbers. 20% is exported and 13% is sold in the aftermarket. In terms of product range, if you look at 26% of this turnover relates to supplying engine components, 16% braking and suspension parts, 14% body and chassis, 13% drive, transmission and steering, 12% from electricals and electronics, 11% from interiors, and balance from multiple other parts. In terms of component, if we divide it supply to OEMs, 43% of this turnover relates to the passenger vehicle industry, 21% to two-wheelers, 25% to commercial vehicles, and balance 11% includes tractor, three-wheelers, and off-highway vehicles. Coming on to exports, so India's export turnover has increased from 62,000 crore in FY14 to 106,000 crore in FY19. Auto components exports grew at a CAGR of 12% over FY8 to FY19. Strong growth in the export segment is led by delivering technologically relevant and globally priced competitive products. Over the years, key export players have established themselves as front runners in their respective segments. So for some companies, exports is also a dominant portion of their revenues. So they have done really well over the years to increase their exports exposure. And we can attribute this to a low labor cost arbitrage vis-a-vis the developed economies, ramping up of investments in R&D capabilities, providing superior product offerings, and setting up extensive distribution network as well. Now, the global trade, if you look at in auto component, is $1.3 trillion, and Indian auto component has a very small share of 1.3% of that. So hence, this exports in the auto components or the autos could be a very big opportunity for the auto component players or export segments from Indian players. Now, while we export, we also do import because not all components gets manufactured here in India. So all companies, whether Indian or foreign, automakers try to localize their products in order to keep your cost down. However, the OEMs have to resort to imports due to certain reasons like lack of capabilities in the domestic market and global sourcing contracts by OEMs. Cheaper imports and low making the domestic manufacturing unviable. So there are, and one of the key imports that we have is from China, which accounted for 27% of our Indian auto component imports in FY19, followed by Germany, which was 14%, and South Korea was around 10%. These three accounted for 50% of the overall component import in FY19. Now we'll move on to the outlook. So we see on the near-term challenges, if you look at BS4 price increase was quite steep for certain segments. As the industry moved from BS4 to BS6, we saw a steep increase in prices in the commercial vehicle and the two-wheeler industry as well, and certain segments of passenger car industry as well. So that actually added to some pressure given the overall demand was actually pretty low. Second near-term challenge will be the weak economic growth due to pandemic, since we are resuming our activities and the situation is gradually improving, but it might take some time before we actually resume to a proper economic or normal economic growth. The third is the gradual pickup in capacity utilization, or I would also point it towards the supply side or the production constraints. Now, multiple companies have raised this issue that especially in certain segment where the demand is higher, the companies are not being able to produce that much vehicles. That has largely happened because there are some supply chain disruptions which the companies are facing because of COVID-related lockdowns happening in certain places, or some of the suppliers are facing certain challenges during this COVID-19 situation. So hence, in certain segments, we are seeing actually like tractor, for example, last month also in the month of July, the capacity utilization for tractor manufacturers was on the lower side. That was because they were facing some supply side constraints. So there are certain challenges which the auto companies are facing in the near term and might continue so unless and until the supply chain is able to ramp up capacities to the full extent. Coming on to the two-wheelers, we expect the two-wheeler segment to be at the forefront of the recovery in the near term due to the lower ticket sizes and consumer preferences for personal mobility. The pent-up demand too is helping the two-wheeler segment. The rural economy remains resilient owing to strong cash flow situation and improving kharif crop prospects due to timely arrival of the southwest monsoon. So the overall two-wheeler industry is expected to do well in terms of recovery in the near term. The passenger vehicle demand is also expected to improve gradually, given loss of production and sales due to COVID-19. The industry may not witness growth in FY21. However, due to low base and expected recovery, the industry is expected to grow significantly over the course of medium term. The commercial vehicle segment, however, we expect this particular segment to remain under pressure in FY21 due to weak economic scenario and steep increase post BS6 implementation. Demand side headwinds include sustainability of small fleet operators and sharp increase in truck prices. Supply side headwinds includes the overcapacity in the market, the for the new demand to coming for trucks, the current truck utilization has to increase to a particular level before the new demand comes in. So the commercial vehicle segment, we believe, will continue to face challenges, especially the medium and heavy commercial in FY21. But going ahead, given that we already saw a very steep decline in FY20 and looking at a decline in FY21 as well, the industry is expected to grow from FY22 onwards and move to an upcycle. Tractors, on the other hand, we expect the tractor segment to remain robust in the near term, driven by a normal monsoon. We see some correlation between monsoons and tractor sales. Strong kharif sowing supported by increase in the minimum support prices, surplus water reservoir levels, and adequate credit availability. We believe the challenge for the tractors, as I told you, will be more on the supply side and on the demand side, and the near-term wholesales might not or might get impacted if the OEMs are not able to ramp up production to meet the surge in demand in tractors. We expect the domestic tractor industry to show small growth in FY21, followed by around slightly higher growth next year. Now, just to summarize this, if you look at the auto industry cycle, so where do we stand in the auto industry cycle? The auto industry started to witness slowdown in second half of FY19. So industry has been in a slowdown for almost 2 years now. We believe that we are almost at the bottom of the down cycle. Anyways, FY21 was expected to show recovery, but because of COVID, it's going to be a write-off year again for the auto industry. While FY21 is expected to witness decline in volume terms due to COVID, FY22 is expected to report healthy growth supported by recovering demand and the lower base, because we have been degrowing for FY20 and is expected to degrow in FY21 as well. In terms of segments which will recover or benefit out of the rural recovery, tractors definitely for sure they actually are seeing benefit out of that. In the two-wheeler segment, we see that segment also benefiting out of rural recovery, especially the motorcycle segment there, and also the small passenger car segment. Now, will the industry recover to pre-COVID level performance in FY22? If you look at it in terms of volumes, we expect healthy volume growth and expect performance in FY22 to improve. FY21, however, we believe the industry will show a decline in volumes, given that we have lost significant volumes in first quarter of this year, and the companies are also facing challenges on ramping up capacities. Now, in terms of opportunities from a slightly longer term, strong growth prospects, growing economy, increasing per capita income, low penetration of vehicles. These are all possible medium and long-term opportunities there ahead of the sector. In terms of challenges, I think the rising cost of vehicles because of regulatory changes that we have seen in the past and very recently as well, and the new technologies that are coming in the sector are certain challenges that the industry needs to look ahead going forward. My last slide will be, I'll just take you to a few stocks that we have a positive view on. One is on Escorts, where we have a buy with a price target of 1300 rupees. There we see the volumes have been pretty strong. The company is showing growth even in these difficult situation. Similarly, for Mahindra & Mahindra as well, we have a buy with a price target of 725. The stock's valuation is also inexpensive, and while there is concern on the auto UV side, side. But tractors anyways is doing good for the company and is expected to do well for the company going ahead. The company is also taking care of the capital allocation issues that has raised some concerns for the company. Maruti Suzuki, we have a sell broadly because of valuations. While we expect the company's volumes will gradually see some improvement, though FY21 full year they'll be degrowing, but FY22 we expect good growth for Maruti. But we believe the valuations are on slightly on the higher side at this point in time for Maruti. And Bajaj Auto, again, we have a positive view. We have a buy on the stock. The company had highlighted in the call on the first quarter results that they are seeing almost like 70 to 90% recovery in two-wheeler demand in domestic and exports market. Though domestic three-wheeler is slightly slow, but other segments are seeing a recovery out there. So I will end the presentation here, and we can go ahead with the Q&A.
Thanks a lot, Arun. That was really insightful. I would now like to welcome Rusmik. Rusmik heads the fundamental research at Kotak Securities and has over 10 years of experience in Kotak Group. The response from our audience has been overwhelming, and Rusmik will moderate these questions. Over to you, Rusmik.
Thanks, Kritika. Thanks, Arun, for the detailed presentation. There are dozens of questions on various aspects. So the first one where a lot of people have asked is, Arun, is that the impact of electric vehicles going forward, because that's a big concern on the minds of a lot of investors and clients. So going forward, how do you see, because now crude prices have also again gone up. If you can just share your observation, thoughts, and knowledge on this subject of EVs and impact on how which segment gets impacted.
Sure. Thanks for the question, Rasmi. On the electric vehicles, our view is that we have seen, if you look at over the past couple of years, the government has been focusing on pushing towards the electric vehicles, though we have not seen a very, very significant success so far. We believe the electric vehicle industry or the penetration or the volumes to come in for the electric vehicles will take some more time. So initially, our thought is that we might see the electric vehicles come in the commercial segments like, say, three-wheelers or the taxi segment, and then followed by the two-wheeler segment, which we believe scooter would be the prominent ones in that. Motorcycles might take some time there, and then gradually going into the passenger vehicle industry. See, there are various challenges right now. Even yesterday, the Delhi government actually announced their electric vehicle policy, where they are giving some incentives for moving towards electric vehicles. But there are certain challenges in terms of availability of batteries. The battery technology itself is evolving right now, and the cost of the battery and the entire infrastructure network that we require for electric vehicles will take some more time. So I think the key trigger for electric vehicles to come in would be if we see a significant decline in the battery lithium-ion battery prices, and if that becomes really, really very, very attractive, maybe then we could see people moving towards electric vehicles. And simultaneously, we need to have a very, very huge and large infrastructure network of charging infrastructure network as well. So I think we are few years away from that, and overall, I think in the next 2 to 3 years, we are not expecting any meaningful change in. We would see some launches in the electric vehicle side, definitely. But in terms of proportion of sales, I think the diesel and the petrol vehicles will continue to form a significant chunk of sales, at least for the next 2 to 3 years. Maybe we would see gradual increase from, if you look for some, from a 5-year perspective, we might see some increase there. From a 10-year perspective, the penetration would increase, but at least over the next 2 to 3 years, we are not seeing a lot of challenges. If we talk in terms of the impact of this, I think the OEMs all the OEMs are definitely working on getting their own electric vehicles. So most of them will be launching their own electric vehicles, maybe at least 1 or 2 models over the next couple of years. In terms of ancillary companies, yes, there will be challenges for certain ancillary companies, maybe, but again, as I told you, that the impact would come from slightly longer term, not at least in the next 2 to 3 years. And the only impact that we can see on the auto ancillary companies which are exposed to electric vehicles would be that the multiples that they get, all the multiple expansion, they may not really see a multiple expansion there if there are certain challenges coming from electric vehicles going forward.
Arun, one more extension of the same question, which segments of the auto ancillary business will get impacted because of electric vehicles, and which are the segments which will continue to do well, irrespective of be it a EV or a non-EV business going forward?
Sure. So the segments which we believe will get impacted would definitely be the auto component players who are supplying on the engine side. And the transmission requirement will also come down in electric vehicles. So there too, some players will feel the pinch. So these are the two broader segments which will see the pinch of electric vehicles. Just naming maybe a few companies here, like piston is there, or gaskets is there, or camshafts is there. These are a few things where we could see some impact. But on the positive side, if you look at the tires will not get impacted. The lights will not get impacted. Then we'll also have the shock-ups which will continue to be in use in the electric vehicles. The interiors are there, the exteriors, doors, paneling, and all those things. They will not have significant impact, at least at this point in time, what we understand. And in terms of, I think one key question would be on the battery side as well. So batteries segment might see some impact because that are used in the electric vehicle are the lithium-ion batteries, and the batteries that we currently use are all lead-acid batteries. So Exide and Amara Raja are producing lead-acid batteries, and they are the market leaders in this space in India. And going ahead, a lot of companies are looking to put up their own lithium-ion plants as well in India. So there could be certain challenges to these battery players as going forward.
Arun, there's one more question, on the similar thing is that in terms of battery prices or outlook, any view you have when or how much time it will take for the battery prices to come down? Just for the viewers, I'm just trying to cover the broader questions, then I'll go into stock specific questions.
Sure. In the battery, if you look at the lithium-ion battery, we have seen a significant correction which has happened over the past 10 years. And we will see a gradual decline in battery prices going ahead as well. But to give a timeline, as in it will happen 2 years, 3 years, because see, there's another, people are also working on different technologies also there. So, first, we believe that, once, even when we see, battery prices coming down, we believe the infrastructure and all those things are also another key important parameters that we have to look. Just because the battery prices have come down, it doesn't mean that we all move up to electric vehicles. There is a lot of infrastructure network as well that needs to come up simultaneously with that. So battery prices are to go down as we have seen the past trend, but as very difficult to give you a timeline as to how much time will it take. But gradually, we believe over the next 2 to 3 years, we will have some decent correction in battery prices, so that at least certain segments will see it viable to pitch electric vehicles against the petrol or diesel vehicles, especially in the two-wheeler segment.
There's one more broad question, Arun. We have already covered in the presentation, but maybe because of all these lockdowns and everything, maybe from here till next FY22, how is the recovery you're seeing, and which segments will recover first? And if you can just, give some color of what kind of growth we can expect, maybe FY20 and FY22 on some of the segments of the auto sector.
All right. As I've already pointed out that FY20, we already saw a decline, which was a double-digit decline for most of the segments. Look at two-wheelers, look at passenger vehicles, or the commercial vehicle segment. Even tractors was down by 10%, and domestic three-wheelers, I believe, was down by around 9%. So we are already sitting on a low base of FY20. Now this year again we are talking about a decline. We look at two-wheelers first. Now two-wheelers already saw a double-digit decline last year. We expect another double-digit decline, a low double-digit decline this year as well in the two-wheeler segment. Now on a very low base and the recovery that we anticipate because of economy and the low base, we believe the two-wheeler segment should grow in a healthy double-digit again, 15% plus sort of growth next year. Similarly, in the passenger vehicle segment, the recovery, decline again was 15 or 18% last year. We are expecting almost like 15 to 18% decline this year as well. So next year again, on a very very low base, and expectations of recovery in the economy, we expect again the passenger vehicle industry to see significant recovery. That would be again in a double digit sort of range, maybe 15 to 20% there. Commercial vehicle segment, especially the medium and heavy commercial segment, saw a very very sharp decline last year. This year again, it's going to be very very challenging. We are expecting very very sharp decline this year as well, and the volumes in FY21, I think, would be, if you know, it declines according to our estimates, would be the lowest in the past 10 years. So we are sitting on a very very low base. So once the economy recovers, and CV industry is definitely dependent upon recovery in the economy, so the medium and heavy commercial industry volumes can see very very high double digit growth for the next couple of years. In fact, we have pointed out in the presentation as to the cyclicality of the nature, and how in the past 10 years we have already seen 20% plus declines for 2 years and 20% plus declines or increase growth in the past 2 years. So the declines and the increase in the medium and heavy commercial industry is always relatively sharper as compared to other segments. So we have already seen the sharp decline last year. We'll see another weak year this year, and hopefully we would see a very strong growth going in FY22 onwards for the commercial vehicle industry. Tractors, surprisingly, we are expecting, even in challenging terms, we are looking at slightly positive growth this year, and a double digit healthy growth next year for tractors. And for three wheelers, this year looks to be a really really challenging year, but we don't have a lot of players with high exposure except for Atul Auto. I think three wheelers is a small part of a lot of other OEMs. So next year we believe the three wheelers should also see a good growth. So in all, we, except for tractor, we are expecting other industries to witness a volume decline this year and a very healthy recovery next year.
Okay. One more question related to the EV. This is like, as you said, maybe the disruption could happen mainly or in the two-wheeler segment in terms of EV expansion. Which company is able to cope up, or which will be the leader? Will it be Hero MotoCorp or Bajaj Auto or TVS who can capitalize on this EV thing in the two-wheeler space?
Sure. See, as I told, that all the companies are actually working out on the electric vehicles, and we expect them to launch a few products over the course of next 2 years, at least one or two more. Already seen Bajaj Auto launch electric Chetak, and we are expecting even Hero MotoCorp is definitely working. They also have investments in Ether Energy, which is working on electric vehicles, and TVS Motors too is working on electric vehicles. So I don't think at this point in time any particular specific player has an advantage over the other. And we should also always remember that overall Honda motorcycle is broadly the market leader in the scooter space. So we have to look at what they are doing as well. So I think at this point in time, players really don't have a very very big advantage over the other player, as all of them are working. So we'll have to see what products they get out and what specification and at what price points that will determine the future success for these players in electric vehicles.
Thanks, sir. This is one broad question that because a lot of companies would be looking at diversifying their logistics and supply chain from China. So is there an opportunity for Indian auto ancillary companies? Do you sense any opportunity in which companies could be able to capitalize on this?
See, definitely, as we pointed out in the presentation, almost 27% of our component imports happen from China. So if people are looking to diversify even globally, I believe the auto component industry would stand to benefit out of that. And ABSC exports is always a very slightly long run process. So the entire product development cycle is relatively long in exports, so it takes a good amount of time. But we believe any player who is supplying to the domestic industry today has got the the technology or something to supply at the global level as well. So I think everyone or a lot of companies stand together here in terms of opportunities. But to specifically point out which companies and segments will benefit, we'll have to check out first that what companies are actually looking to shift firstly from China to India. Once we get that input in particular industry, then maybe we'll be able to figure out who is the market leader or the top players in that particular segments. Because in auto components there are hundreds and hundreds of parts that are used in a vehicle, so it's very difficult to give you a pinpoint name right now as to which companies could benefit. But you can definitely count on the larger names who already has got good export uh, proportion and who are already exporting to global players. So those could benefit, but then those components has to come to India. Should be manufactured earlier in China and has to come in India.
Okay, I'm moving on to stock specific questions. Arun, a lot of stock specific questions have come in. Obviously, the first one, most known is Tata Motors. If you can share some view on Tata Motors, how do you look at the company, and is there an investment scope in Tata Motors?
See, Tata Motors performance, we all know, has been very weak over the past few years. If you look both at the domestic side as well as the on JLR, the performance have deteriorated over the past few years. Looking at the standalone business, they are in two different broad segments. One is the commercial vehicle and the passenger vehicle industry. The commercial vehicle industry is anyways very, very cyclical. So we are going through a downturn, and accordingly, the company is also going through a downturn in the CV business. But the CV business, at least once it recovers, they'll start making money in the CV business. I think the prime concern for Tata Motors on the domestic side is more on the passenger vehicle business, which has been burning cash for quite many years now. And that remains a challenge for the company. They have sort of launched few models in the past few years to revive that particular segment, but that's not really yielded very positive results so far. So that's one challenge the company faces in the standalone business on the passenger vehicle segment. The company is doing a lot of cost cutting programs, both at JLR and Tata Motors. The effects we'll see going forward. JLR again, we have seen the performance weakening, the margins coming off for JLR, the cash flows getting impacted for JLR. We will see a very, very challenging year this year as well for JLR as well for Tata Motors on a consolidated basis. This year as well, we expect the company to report losses. Going next year on a low base, there could be volume recovery and there could be improvement in the performance. But coming back to the previous performance, I think will take a lot more efforts and a lot more time there. So we are actually on a phase where the entire industry has been down, and simultaneously the performance for Motors has also been down. So we would see some recovery going forward in terms of performance in second quarter and gradually in third and fourth quarter and next year as well. But I think there are also certain concerns on the Brexit sort of impact looming on Tata Motor or JLR. So there are a lot of challenges. The risk and the stock remains high. We currently have a sell rating though on the stock on the current numbers or estimates that we have. So it's a very, very risky stock, and we would recommend maybe we could wait for certain recovery to happen to enter into the stock, for Tata Motors.
Thanks, Arun. Arun, Eicher Motors has been a very good, well generating stock. Of it, it's come up in the last 1-2 years. Is there a long term view on Eicher Motors? Maybe can it go back to its old form, and will it be a well generating stock for the next 3 year, 5 year?
Sure. See, if you look Eicher Motors from a 1 year perspective, then we actually have a negative view. But if you look from a slightly longer term perspective, the stock has generated a lot of wealth. The stock has seen very, very strong volume growth in the past. The margins saw significant improvement, moved all the way to 32%. But in the last 1.5 year, we have seen the margins coming to 24-20, EBITDA margins coming to 24-25%. So the balance sheet and everything remains very, very strong for Eicher Motors. It's just that the growth part in the current lockdown, cities are the most impacted in COVID, and a lot of volumes for Eicher Motors come from big cities. So they'll take some time to recover. Yes, maybe from a 3 to 5 year perspective, one can have a look into the stock when the volume recovers. And another key important thing would be the new product launches from Eicher Motors. If they are able successful new product launches, that should be a key growth driver for them in the domestic market. Exports they have been working on for past few years, and hopefully if exports can yield some positive results over the next 3 years or 5 years, that could be a good opportunity in Eicher Motors as well. So yeah, maybe from a longer term perspective, one can use corrections and to add from a 3 to 5 year perspective. But from a very short, maybe or a year's perspective, we currently have a negative rating on the stock, given that the recovery we believe will take some more time for Eicher Motors as compared to the other dealers.
Thanks, Arun. Arun, within the tire space, first, does it merit to invest in tire stocks? And if you can pick one from either CEAT, MRF, or Apollo Tires, which could be that one stock which can do well in the tire space?
Sure. See, in the tire space, there are few things we need to take or look at. One is on the demand side. So, unlike a lot of other OEMs, auto ancillary companies, which are highly dependent upon the OEM segment, tire has got a big replacement market as well. And that is what we saw even now, both Apollo Tires and CEAT have highlighted that, the replacement market is showing positive growth both for trucks and tractors. So that's a positive sign for tire companies. The other thing is we have to keep a very, very close watch on the raw material prices, which is both natural rubber as well as the crude prices, because there are certain raw material which are crude derivatives. So if we see a very sharp increase in crude prices, that could impact the tire companies, and it's not very easy, to pass on the price increases in a very competitive market. And the thirdly is on the capex cycle. We have seen a lot of capexes that has been done by the tire industry in the last few years. So going forward, I believe in the tire space, if the raw material prices remain stable, demand ideally should improve both on the replacement and on the OEM side. And apart from that, the utilization levels, the capacity utilization, which has been low, and the new capex which is coming in, should also, give operating leverage benefits to these tire companies. Now, MRF, we believe, is pretty expensive on the valuations, so we prefer Apollo Tires and CEAT at this point in time.
Okay, thanks. Another question is, on the car space, a lot of people have asked about what's the view on Maruti Suzuki, and can they look at investing in Maruti from a 2-year, 3-year perspective?
Sure. See, Maruti's, we all talked about how the July numbers were good and all those things, but we should also understand that last year, July, if you look at, say, for example, Maruti has posted flattish or a marginal positive in the domestic volumes. But we should understand last year, July, the volumes actually saw a big degrowth. So 2 years back, the July volumes for Maruti were 1,64,000, 1,65,000. We are talking about 1,10,000 now. So the recovery for Maruti is happening, no doubt on that particular this thing, because things are gradually moving up now, and we are already, as I talked about, that the industry is pretty cyclical, so we have already seen a down cycle, so we hopefully should be moving into up cycle. So from that perspective, yes, Maruti should do well. The company ideally should be doing well also on a couple of counts, is that they have a good rural presence, so they should ideally gain some market share this year. Rural is doing well, and people should be down trading towards from a higher price vehicle to a low price vehicle. So there also the company has a good leadership position. So these factors are positive for Maruti, but it's just that the valuations that we see right now are it's slightly on the higher side right now, so we would wait for some corrections in Maruti. Accumulation would be the best strategy for Maruti from a 2 to 3 year perspective, and that's how one should look at the stock. Because as I told you that the industry will see upcycle, so it's just about at what price one should be entering into the stocks. Should we enter a significant portion at this price, or should we wait for some corrections? As I told you, Maruti slightly, I think, is capturing a good amount of recovery already into the price. So wait for some correction, use that opportunity to go for 2 to 3 years in the stock.
Right. There was I'm clubbing one question. People had asked views on some bearing companies also, which are related to auto. Maybe they're not fully related to auto, but any take on the SKF or Schaeffler,
sure,
these companies?
Yeah. So on the bearing companies, we, again, as Rasmik also talked about, that the companies have exposure to the auto side and also have to the non-autos, which is the industrial segment. So while autos will see recovery next year, and hopefully industries also should see recovery. Currently we have just purely on valuations, we have a negative view on Schaeffler, SKF, and Timken at this point in time. That's purely to do with valuations. But if someone is looking for 2 to 3 years, perspective, then use whatever small additions at this point in time, maybe, and gradually add up if there's some correction in the market, and add up for 2 to 3 years at point. The earnings growth and all those things should be good for the company in FY22 for the bearing companies. But it's just that the valuations are slightly higher, and we have already seen how the markets have moved up, broader markets, as well as the recovery in the mid caps and small cap as well. So the stocks have actually moved up significantly. So we should use correction opportunities to enter into bearing companies as well.
Okay. Maybe I'll just take 2 more questions in view of the time constraint. What is the right time to invest in auto stocks? According to you, maybe is this the right time to invest in stocks, or one should wait, or how does one invest in? What is the time frame one can look at, and how to go about investing in auto stocks at this juncture?
Sure. See, this actually broadly, when we look at the industry cycle, this is a good time to enter into the auto stock. But we also have to simultaneously look at the prices of the stock. So the strategy the way one should look forward for investing in auto stocks should be accumulation. Use declines for investing, and look for slightly longer term. Because certain stocks might be capturing a decent recovery already into the price. So look for slightly longer term period horizon for investments, and you can enter. Look at buying small quantities now. Keep on adding whatever corrections we see in the auto stocks, and that should. And go for good names. Go for companies where the balance sheet is pretty healthy, and the risk profile could be slightly on the lower side. So I think that should be the strategy.
Okay, and the last question, Arun, if you can just give us in each segment which is the best company to invest. For example, if there's a tractor or two-wheeler or car, or in auto ancillary, if you can just give us your top 2-3 picks, I think that could summarize our entire webinar for auto.
Sure. See, in the two-wheeler segment, again, in the near term, we expect Hero MotoCorp to do well in terms of rural, but the stock already, as we talked about, is capturing, a bit of that. Bajaj is one stock we like because they are seeing recovery both in domestic and export. Even Hero MotoCorp, one can look at, but only on corrections from these levels, not necessarily at the current price points. Eicher Motor, again, we talked about from a maybe 3-year perspective. Maybe then, when we see a good recovery coming in the domestic market, and exports too would ideally be contributing, meaningfully to them. From that perspective, we can look Eicher as well. TVS Motors, we find the valuations are relatively on the expensive side, though the stock has got good potential to grow their volumes as well as improve margins. But I think valuations still are on the higher side when we compare with the other major players. In terms of passenger vehicles, Maruti Suzuki is the pure play if you look at the passenger vehicle segment. We already talked about it, how one can look at it. The near term already is pricing in a lot of positives. Look for corrections and look for a slightly longer time. See? For tractors, if we are looking for a pure tractor play, we have got 2 players we can look at. One is Mahindra & Mahindra, and the other is Escorts. Mahindra again has got value coming in from the auto business as well. For Escorts, around 80% of the revenue comes from the tractor business. So we can look at Escorts in the tractor business. M&M also is a decent bet, as the valuations are not very expensive, and the company is also working on capital allocation issues. Then moving on to ancillary companies in the tire stocks, we talked about Apollo and SEAT looks good as we expect recovery in the replacement cycle that should improve their performance going forward. In the lighting space, this is one industry one can actually look forward going ahead. Because in lighting space, apart from the demand recovery or the volume recovery, what we will see, there's another thing that is happening is a shift from halogen to LED. The prices of LEDs are relatively higher. That is like 2 times or 3 times of the halogen based headlamps. So this is one particular industry that could see a healthy growth over the course of next 3 years or so. Players in this include in the 4-wheeler segment, we have like Lumex Industry is the market leader. Then in 2-wheeler, we have PM Industries. So these are a couple of companies we can look in the lighting space. Batteries for the time being we can avoid. We can for some better opportunities to enter into the stock. And companies which are dependent on commercial vehicles like Automotive Excel or Jamna Auto. Now, these are the stock where the risk, especially Jamna, maybe, the risk might slightly be higher at this point in time, given the CV cycle going through a very, very difficult times. But the correction in the stock prices has also been pretty steep. So whenever we see recovery in the commercial vehicle segment, especially in medium and heavy commercial volumes, I think stocks we can look as the Automotive Excel and Jamna Auto there.
Thank you, Arun. I think that's it from my side. I'll stop here. Maybe if Kratika just wants to have a concluding thing, or maybe if you want to conclude the session.
Mind, I think thanks everyone for joining in, and if anyone has got any queries, they can write us on the email. We'll try and respond to your queries on this sector. Kratika, you have something to say? Maybe you would close the session.
Thank you so much, Arun. Thank you, Rusmik. That was an enriching session, quite in depth, and I'm sure our audience would have enjoyed listening to your views. On behalf of our participants and Kotak Securities, I thank you for taking out your time. Thank you, audience, for listening to us.